Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Molyneux and Matt Finch is the other presenter. We're going to talk to you about scenario planning. Before we do that, however, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we are meeting, particularly me, and at the moment for me that is the land of the Yuggera, Yagara and Turrbals people, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who might be here with us today. Thank you.
What can we tell you about scenarios in 180 seconds? Well, scenarios are a systematized set of comparatively different narrative descriptions about their user's external context, future-oriented and plausibly possible. But what does that really mean? A scenario is a way of constructing stories about the futures which we might have to inhabit in order to challenge our assumptions. It's not about the futures we predict. It's not about the futures we prefer. It's about those which we can learn from because they challenge us. A nice example is the tortoise and the hare. Just because this story never happened doesn't mean that it can't teach us something. In the context of an undergraduate degree at Griffith University, students in the third year of a 4-year degree were returning from a role emerging placement where they'd been learning about applying the skills that they'd been developing in the real world. Now, students took on roles as clients, therapists, and administrators in a series of imagined futures designed to stretch and challenge their assumptions about occupational therapy. And addressing the problems of an imagined future offered insights into OT's role, which were otherwise unavailable in the present.
One of the activities we did was almost fantastical in terms of there was a strategy for students to think very differently about some possible future scenarios, but that required them then to think about what could occupational therapy offer. And you get a bit of a taste of how extreme it was. But one of the things that was really interesting about doing this exercise with students is although it was unknown, uncertain, and not certain that it would happen, it was a really powerful experience for students to return to their foundations of occupational therapy and occupational science to really think about what could they offer. And it was a fun exercise as well. In terms of the benefits, we think scenario planning is certainly very useful for students, but also useful for a whole range of people within occupational therapy, partly because it allows us to imagine possibilities. And so it frees us from the constraints of having to think about what is the reality, but to think very creatively and very differently. And interestingly, in those unknown situations, it really does challenge but strengthen our professional identity as occupational therapists.
Thanks so much for joining us on this whistle-stop tour of scenario planning in occupational therapy. You can find out more in the details of the poster below, and we hope to continue this conversation with you. Thanks everyone, and goodbye for now.